The 2024 spring transfer portal window closed about a week ago on Wednesday, May 1st, and it was open from April 16th to April 30th, so just 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, relative to expectations, this portal window was not that exciting. But that doesn't mean there weren't teams that came away as winners and losers in this portal period, teams that just broke even, and overall that impacts the overall portal classes, which are becoming ever more crucial to success in the college football landscape. Miami's transfer portal class is 12th nationally, with 14 incoming transfers, and they added 5 of them in this portal period. Linebacker Jalen Alderman from Louisville, defensive tackle Simeon Barrow Jr. from Michigan State, wide receiver Sam Brown from Houston, running back Damien Martinez from Oregon State, and cornerback Deani Hill from Marshall. And this transfer portal class is very similar to those like Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas, Florida State, Colorado, Ohio State, Washington, and Florida. That's the top 10 transfer portal classes per 24/7 Sports. And Miami's is very similar to those classes in the sense that these incoming players are going to upgrade the roster significantly. You look at Ohio State, and I would also say Oregon and Ole Miss as the special 3 in that top 10, where the portal additions they made are going to make a humongous impact. And then there are portal classes like Texas A&M's and Colorado's, where they are bringing in a ton of players, a lot of bodies to replace players who the coaches and staffs at those respective schools view as inadequate. I think Miami's is more similar to Ole Miss's, Oregon's, and Ohio State's incoming class. And you could also add Texas and Alabama in that mix. These schools, along with Miami, are looking for selective upgrades. They're looking for big-time additions, but also additions that can help them in areas that are not necessarily weaknesses, but weak links. Like the secondary, I would say, for Miami. Bringing in Deani Hill is not this explosive elite addition, but he's going to have great impact. And in the wide receiver room, I'd say it's similar with Sam Brown. Xavier Restrepo returns, but Miami wanted to add even more depth and raise the ceiling and raise the floor of that unit, so they brought in Sam Brown from Houston. But we're going to be talking about Miami today, and with this incoming portal class and also a top 5, number 4 recruiting class coming in for 2024, does Miami now have the best roster in the ACC in terms of total talent? But we're going to talk about that here on this episode of College Football with Sam. Before we dive any deeper, I just want to give a shout out to my supporters on Patreon and also encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so that you can get notified when I release more college football content. Also, comment your reaction to Miami's class down in the comment section below. I think that they were the biggest winner of the spring transfer portal period, and they were one of the bigger winners now in the entire transfer portal period for 2024. I mean, the moves that they made, bringing in Cameron Ward, and especially looking at Damien Martinez, who's, I'd say, a top 10 running back, or certainly a top 15 running back in the sport of college football. Did great things at Oregon State. I think that this team has a lot more upside and also more depth now because of what they've done in the portal, and they're recruiting very well. I would say for Miami, all that remains to be seen is Mario Cristobal and his staff. Can they utilize the talent they have? Can they manage a game properly? These things, of course, will sort themselves out in the fall. If you want to sign up to my Patreon and go the extra mile and support this channel, you're always welcome to, but there is no pressure. No matter what membership level you are, you will always get shouted out at the end of the video and at the beginning or middle of the video, depending on the length and duration of the content, of course. You will get featured on screen, just like these names are right now. All conference members, you just get thanked and featured in the video. If you want bonus content or even merchandise after 6 months of signing up, You have to join as an All-American member for the bonus content, and at 6 months, signed merchandise. You have to be a Heisman member, and also as a Heisman member, you get to message me and give me content suggestions. So a lot of different bonuses. There will be more consistent bonus content on Patreon come the summer, which is rapidly approaching us. So that's one way to support the channel. The other is Super Chats and also my merchandise store. You can find my Patreon page and merchandise store via the links in the description or at the top of the pinned comment. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get back to it. Now, with the additions that Miami has made both in the winter and spring portal periods, the incoming recruiting class, and more staff continuity than they had from 2022 to 2023, I have a question for you all that I want you to answer and try and be as objective as possible. Do you think that the Miami Hurricanes are college football playoff contenders? I gotta be honest with you and say that I don't exactly know. Right now, I'd lean more so toward yes than no. And I really liked the portal additions. I love the incoming recruiting class. Recruiting can never hurt you. It can only help you when you're recruiting at this high of a level. And there are parts of Mario Cristobal's staff that I like offensive line coach Alex Mirabal and their strength and conditioning program down there. And I also like Shannon Dawson at offensive coordinator. And there's a lot to like about Miami as a program, not just in its present, but its history. However, Mario Cristobal does have questions, and the team has questions in terms of losing some star talent that they did to the NFL. And the fact that they, throughout their history, especially in the 21st century and 20 or 10 years before that, they've always had talent on their roster. They've always recruited at a high level. The question is, can they put it together? So maybe you can do the job for me and answer the question of whether they're a college football playoff contender down below. I lean yes, but I think I need more time before coming out in the preseason and declaring my answer to that question. But I'll have an answer to that as I try and give some answers or predictions for every college football team. Miami is 46th in returning production from last year. They're 21st in the first edition of Bill Connolly's SP Plus ratings. He will update returning production and SP Plus ratings this month, actually. I don't think he's done it yet, but he'll do that very soon. And the Hurricanes have the 12th best transfer portal class, bringing in 14 players. They have the 4th best high school recruiting class, also per 24/7 Sports. So a lot of incoming talent and staff continuity and returning production that is inside the top 50. That's higher than a lot of teams, close to, I would say, 70% in terms of returning production. I don't know exactly the number, but I think it's close to 70% of their production from last year is returning. In returning production, there's teams at the top that are outliers, and then there's just a slow decline from team number 3, which is Nebraska, all the way down to like the 100s. It's just a slow and steady decline. And then the last 10 teams, Michigan and Washington, are a part of those. They just drop off a cliff in terms of returning production. So if you're in the top 100 of returning production, you're returning 50% or half or more of your production from last year. I think Miami's in that 70 to 60% range, and I'm pretty sure they're close to the 70s. That's very good. Staff continuity is good, and incoming talent that exceeds departing talent is also great. So the Hurricanes do have a lot going for them. And when the incoming talent includes players like Cameron Ward and Damien Martinez in particular, and I would also say Simeon Barrow, Samuel Brown, and Deani Hill, how can't you be excited? Look at Damien Martinez and Sam Brown. Damien Martinez last year at Oregon State ran for 1,185 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry, less than 200 total carries throughout the year, and he also had 126 receiving yards. He recorded 3 fumbles per ESPN, only one of them was lost, and he played in a physical, deep Pac-12, a Pac-12 that included Washington, Oregon, Arizona, Utah, UCLA, just some schools to mention, USC, Washington, and Oregon were obviously the best of the best, and both of those teams, if you simulated the season or played it over and over again, those teams would win the national championship several times. And USC, Utah, Arizona, UCLA, those are other teams that I'd put in the good category. Damien Martinez played Utah, played UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. All those teams had anywhere from, I would say, good defenses to some of the best in the terms of Utah's, when Utah's defense was healthy. He ran for 4.1 yards per carry against Utah, 6 yards per carry against UCLA, 4.7 yards per carry against Washington. And Oregon State overall had a weird down, I would say, sleepwalking performance against Oregon. I think partially because Jonathan Smith was trying to get ready to accept the Michigan State job. He only ran for 2.9 yards per carry against Oregon. Great running back. He's going to add a lot to this offense. Sam Brown, he had 815 receiving yards at Houston, 3 touchdowns, 13.1 yards per reception. His biggest game was against Texas Tech and Rice. And against Texas, 80 receiving yards on 4 receptions, 20 yards per reception. I mean, Texas's secondary was not good whatsoever. I think the best defense that Samuel Brown probably played all season long was Kansas State, had 49 receiving yards on 4 receptions. Houston was not a good team last year. Miami last year will probably be better than Houston is this year or last year. So Brown is going to an upgraded roster. He will be joining quarterback Cameron Ward, obviously, who threw for 25 touchdowns, 7 picks last year, almost 4,000 yards, 3,735 to be specific. And he had a 145.4 passer rating, a 65.2 QBR, which is dead center at 50th in the country. Ward also had 144 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns with a long scramble of 22. He got sacked 38 times last year. He'll have a much better offensive line at Miami, who, whether it's at Miami or Oregon, offensive line coach Alex Mirabal and Mario Cristobal, that's their specialty, is the offensive line. Ward will be better protected. It'll allow him to stay in the pocket more, be more comfortable, have more pass attempts, be more accurate, and that'll help Samuel Brown and Xavier Restrepo and others to have more catches and to increase their load, increase their production and productivity. That's the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, Deani Hill is an exciting addition, and same with Simeon Barrow Jr. Deani Hill, given the departures at secondary, I love the 34 solo tackles, 55 total, a forced fumble, a pick, 10 passes defended. Marshall played Virginia Tech. They played North Carolina State. They played some Power 5 in the past tense, now Power 4 competition. And Deani Hill's biggest game was against Georgia Southern, where he had 3 passes defended and also a forced fumble along with 6 total tackles. At 6 foot, 172 pounds last year, he'll probably add some weight incoming this year, as he was a sophomore last season, and expect him to add some quality depth and play to the secondary. And finally, we have Simeon Barrow Jr., who I didn't mention on screen, and that was probably a mistake. But Simeon Barrow Jr. is, I think, a bigger addition than Deani Hill. He's probably a bigger addition than Samuel Brown, honestly. Simeon Barrow Jr., when healthy, is one of the better defensive tackles in the Big Ten. He's going to an easier conference that will allow him to dominate even more. At almost 300 pounds and 6'3" last year, he did struggle with some injuries, but he had 3.5 sacks, a forced fumble, 14 total tackles, and several tackles for loss. His biggest game was against Nebraska, where he had a forced fumble, a sack, and 3 total tackles. He also had a sack against Central Michigan, a sack against Indiana, half sack against Richmond. So he didn't show up in big games in the same way that he did, I'd say, in 2021 or 2022. But overall, it is what it is. He's still a great defensive tackle. I think he will do well with Miami and really help them in their run defense. What Miami needs with all the departures they have on defense is great defensive play, several players to step up there, And I think bringing in Deani Hill and Simeon Barrow Jr. in that spring window just helps add, particularly to the floor of this defense, to raise that floor. It's expected that the offense is going to be great. They went from, I would say, average or below average, at times terrible in 2022, to showing flashes of near elite or elite play last season. We already know that Cameron Ward, I think, is better, or at least the same as Tyler Van Dyke, and with the additions at wide receiver and running back, that means the offense at worst is going to be the same as last year, but probably less turnover prone with a higher floor. The ceiling of this offense is likely going to be better than last year, and making sure that the departures on defense don't hurt the team's overall performance as much as it would if they didn't add any portal additions, that's very key. This offense could be one of the best in the country. The defense has the talent to succeed in spite of their departing production. So that's all I have to say in this video, really. But Miami, I think, won the spring portal, period. It was big bringing in Simeon Barrow and Damien Martinez and Sam Brown in particular. These are players that you will know regardless whether you're a Miami fan or not this coming fall. Thanks to Crash2488 for being a Heisman member and sponsoring this video and channel. Thanks to Spencer Bringhurst, Chris Lane, and Connor Little OH for being All-American members and sponsoring this video. Thanks to Will Loftus, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell for being all-conference members and sponsoring this video. Have a great day, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, comment your thoughts down below, and share this video around. Have a great day, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye.